Hi, my name is Samantha and welcome to today's video. Today is going to be an analysis of the 600 jar opener challenge. Let's get into it. So the 600 jar opener challenge took all of February, from February 1st all the way up to the 28th, and it was really hard this year. The goal this year was to get 600 jar openers done, but in reality, I needed more than 600 done because in 2024, I sold 638 jar openers. So remaking 600 jar openers was not going to restock my inventory. Therefore, my actual goal was 750. If you haven't already watched that video, spoiler alert coming, we did accomplish the 750, and it was very, very hard. Thankfully, I had a lot of data from last year so that I was able to prepare better this year. I still don't think I was prepared enough, and I'm really looking forward to 2026 when I think I can absolutely knock it out of the park. So in 2024, or let me walk you back. Excuse me. So in 2022, I sold 481 jar openers. So I needed to make at least 500 to restock. So that's where the 600 jar openers came from. So then in 2023, I made the 600 jar openers. And during that time, our disaster was that I needed a new walking foot and I didn't complete the 600 until March. So we were unsuccessful the first year. Last year, my sewing machine broke for the most part, and I had to take it to the repair shop. So I had to then go buy a secondary machine as a backup. We did run into a similar issue this year, spoiler alert, but we did complete within 28 days last year using both machines. So I was able to use the secondary machine, the Band-Aid machine, and then I was able to get my actual machine back. So that was a huge hiccup. This year, we ran into the same issues as last year. However, since I knew what they did to repair it at the repair shop, I was able to self-diagnose and fix the problems, order the spare parts. I still have not used the spare parts, but I have them available now when I do need them. And the other mistake that I made this year is I did not order enough tags. So when we got to the step of needing tags, I couldn't do anything. I ordered my tags from a shop on Etsy that's in France. So not only is there the preparation time of them receiving my order, creating my order, cutting my tags, but then it also has to ship across the ocean. So that was on me. I ordered them, I think January 30th or something, when we did the jar opener prep day, which I'm so glad I did that. That's when I realized I didn't have enough tags. All of those errors I have definitely learned. So for 2026, I have a whole list of things that, hey, make sure you have this, and this done. Something different that I did in 2025 versus 2024 is I had all of the fabric cut ahead of time. Last year, I counted the cutting time within the month, and cutting really stresses me out, and I want to make sure that I'm maximizing every single piece. I don't want to waste anything. So this year I started cutting as soon as I got fabric. I had a bin set aside all year, and every time I would go somewhere and get some new fabric, I would cut some up, put it away, cut some up, put it away, cut some up, put it away. So they weren't cut down to jar openers, but they were cut ready to go in strips, which was really, really helpful. And I will definitely implement that again. Then in January of this year, I went ahead and made sure they were all cut down to size. In that process, I was also able to cut the wine bags as well as the tissue pouches. So I was able to cut additional products, which is another reason why I didn't want to count that into the assembly time, because it wasn't a true jar opener number because I was cutting other things as well. So I'm really glad of those changes that I made. Another good thing last year is I wrote down how much thread I used. So I like using these big Gutermann spools that are 1,000 meters for my interior stitches, for black and white interior stitches. So in 2024, I went through 1.5, so I knew I needed 2. And then for my tan threads, I went through 2 rolls. However, this year I was like, why am I going through so many spools? I went through all 4 of these spools, and I was only supposed to go through 2, and an additional smaller one, which wasn't quite right, but I made it work. And then we even had to open a 6th. I just realized when I was going over all these documents again, that where I messed up is that these spools are 250 meters. And I have written down here that in 2024, I went through 2 rolls of tan, 1,000 meters total. That means we did go through the same amount of thread, roughly. I mean, we made 750 versus 600, but we did go through 1,000. This is 1,000. It's just 4 250 rolls versus 2 500 rolls. So, big brain there. I messed that up. Again, 2025 or 2026, I'm going to be a lot more prepared and make sure that I have 1,000 meters of tan. So I'm very glad that I had all of that written down so that I could try to be better prepared. Something else that was super helpful is that I wrote down how many bobbins I went through. So in 2024, I went through, where did I write it down? Bobbins. 20 white bobbins, so of the big thread, 20 white and 14 tan. So I have this container here that is 5 by 5. We had this whole thing filled with bobbins and then 10 additional. So that's 35 bobbins versus 34. So we went through all of these bobbins and then I did have to fill up an additional one, and we finished off a couple other ones that were like almost done. So again, we did 750 this year versus 600, but that was something really, really helpful in preparation, knowing how many bobbins I needed filled up. So I will definitely do that again in 2026. I'll use the same data, make sure I have enough tan, make sure I have enough white, and make sure I have enough bobbins prepped and ready to go. So for our stats for 2025, every day I wrote down what I accomplished, and this is the same thing that I did the past 2 years, that I have just like a monthly calendar that I wrote everything down. And something else that I did different this year is that I broke things down into bags. I used 2-gallon bags from Walmart, and that was an amazing decision. I loved that decision so much. Now, when I was moving throughout the house with the jar openers of the day, I did have just like a small bin that I would just like use to transport them, but when I went to go work on the next set, then I pulled out the next Ziploc bag, and that was so helpful. It kept me so organized. I will absolutely implement that same system next year, and the fact that I did not write on the bags or damage the bags in any way, I can keep reusing those same bags. And it was also really affordable. Like, I think there was like 10 bags for $2 or $3, and I used 8, so perfect. And I was trying to figure out how many jar openers, so 600 jar openers divided by how many bags, how long would it take me to do each bag? So what I decided on was 600 jar openers divided by 8 bags was 75 each. If there's 28 days in the month, then with 8 bags, I had 3.5 days to complete each bag, which meant that I needed to complete the bags in 3 days each if I wanted to complete them in 24, because I wanted them done faster, because I wanted to do that additional 150. So knowing that I had 3 days, I then separated the steps of doing the jar opener into 3 categories. So I knew that on day 1, these are the steps I need to work on. On day 2, these are the steps I need to work on. Again, I think that was a great plan. Another hiccup or wrench in that was the tags. The fact that I didn't have the tags, I then had to like go to other bags and get that step partially done. So if I would have had the tags from the start, I think I would have been a lot more smooth in my transitions. Also with the jar openers, you're switching from the walking foot to the regular foot, the walking foot. So I made it so day 1 was the walking foot, day 2 was the regular foot, day 3 was the walking foot. Now, something that I did not account for, because I didn't know, because in the previous years, I didn't keep track of how long every single step took me. This year, I kept diligent steps of how long each step took me. So within day 1, day 2, day 3, I then had 3 steps within day 1, so A, B, C, and then within step 2, I had step A and B, and then within step 3, I had A and B. So now I know exactly for that step. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps to make a jar opener. I know estimated how long it takes me to do each one, which is super helpful in planning on next year. How many do I want in each bag? How long is it going to take me to do each one? That is great information to have. So I'm so glad I did that. I thought that separating the steps out like that, they would be pretty equal in time. I was very wrong. So just for the 600, not counting the extra 150, not counting the 750, just for the 600, step 1, so the first walking foot step, took me 6 calendar days, 17 hours and 25 minutes. Step 2 took 9 calendar days because I had to go back to each bag. 18 hours and 30 minutes. So those are pretty similar, right? 17, 18 hours. Step 3 took 12 calendar days and 28 hours. Step 3 was way, way too large. I really should have separated things into 4 steps, because step 4 on average, or step 3, I'm sorry, part A and part B on average took about 2 hours per step. So that was a big undertaking, and especially that the very, very last step is top stitching. So I really want to take my time with that step. So in the future, I think I need to reevaluate how I had these steps broken down, or maybe make the bags bigger and then make them smaller when I get to that last step. I don't know, something like that, because the workload was very like unequal. So what I did is all of the steps, all 7 steps, I put them into an Excel worksheet with all of the bags. So then I was able to estimate or do totals and averages to know how long they all took me. So bag A took 440 minutes, bag B 450, bag C 475, bag D 570, bag E 475, bag F 505, bag G 470, bag H 500, bonus bag 1 410, and bonus bag 2 425. So for the total time for the 600 jar openers was 3,885 minutes, which is 64 hours and 45 minutes. That's to make 600 jar openers, not counting cutting time, not counting serging, washing, ironing, cutting, not that prep work, just like from the time that it's ready to be made into the product. It took 64 hours and 45 minutes to make 600 jar openers. For those 600 jar openers, my average per jar opener was 6 minutes and 48 seconds, or 6.48, so 6.5 minutes, so 6 minutes 30 seconds roughly. If we do the total time, all 750, that was 4,720 minutes, which is 78 hours and 40 minutes. So almost 80 hours, which is really interesting because in 2026 or 2024, it took a total of 4,980 minutes. So 4,980 minutes versus 4,720 minutes. So 78 hours versus, where is it? Where do I have it written down? 83 hours. So very, very similar. 600 jar openers from start to finish, 750 just assembly time, which is great to know. So that means that the cutting time roughly for the 750 was about that variance, right? It was about, what is that? 80 minus 65, so 15 hours roughly, that difference. So that is great information to know that it takes me about 15 hours to cut all of this material, which is insane. So the average of all of the jar openers per jar opener is 6.29, so that's about like 6 minutes 15 seconds ish. For the average of each bag, the average of each bag was 485 minutes, which if I wrote that down, 485, that's about 8 hours, about 8 hours per bag. And my estimate, when I had written down my calculations based on last year, including cutting time, I had estimated that each bag was going to take me 10 hours, which makes total sense. 2 hours per bag for cutting time, which I didn't include. And then the average for all of them was 472 minutes, which is a little less, right? It's more like, where is that written down somewhere else? 7, okay, that's about 7 hours and 50 minutes. So 7 hours and 50 minutes for the whole average versus 8 hours. So about 8 hours to do a bag from start to finish of 75, which was confirmed when the Saturday when we did bonus bag 1 from start to finish, that took 410 minutes. And that was not focusing on anything else, and that was 7 hours. So it was definitely very interesting to like get to see all of these numbers and keep track a lot better. I don't know if I'd keep this close of track next year. I don't know. Now that I already have it like thought out, it'd be easier to keep track of it next year, but it's definitely hard to like constantly be writing down and making sure I know how long everything took. Something else I did differently this year is that I did a daily update, which this video is already getting a little long. I'm going to be posting on Thursday an analysis of the posting every day, which was really, really hard. Like, if the jar openers was the only thing that I was doing, it would be a lot easier. You know, 80 hours of work, if I was able to just like take a week off of work and off of life and I could just focus on these, then I could probably get it done within a week calendar time. But trying to like do all of life, it's really hard. And that was something else I was thinking about is like, okay, so knowing this and knowing that assembly time is about 6.5 minutes per jar opener, how many could I do in 24 hours? My estimate is I could do about 222, which, if you know, I love twos. That's my favorite number. So what if I did a challenge where I tried to make 200 jar openers within 24 hours? If I did that, I could do it 3 times and get 600 jar openers. So next year, do I tell myself, okay, I have 3 sprints instead of 1 marathon? Next year, do I spend each Saturday just working on jar openers, right? Like I start like Saturday at 10 a.m. and then I stay up all night until Sunday at 10 a.m. and I just make jar openers. Also, do I do a live for that entire 24 hours? I don't know. That was just something that I was like thinking in my brain, like, would it be better to do that rather than every single day having to dedicate? I don't have an estimate of how long it took me each day, but I did at least, the smallest number I see on here is 2 hours. I did at least 2 hours of work every single day. So would it be better to do 3 sprints instead of 1 marathon? I don't know. That's just something that I'm thinking. Yeah, let me see. Is there any other information I was going to share? Yeah, so next year on my list, I have to order the tags, make sure I have enough thread for the tan and the white, make sure I have more shelf liner than I need. I had the rolls of shelf liner I needed for the 600. However, I didn't have enough shelf liner for the 750. So I definitely want to be better this year about slowly accumulating and having it on hand. I have my bin set aside. That is my jar opener bin, and it's going to start filling up with fabric again. I'm going to cut them into strips, which was super helpful. And I'm going to have my shelf liner ready to go. I'm going to deep clean my machine before we start. I had to deep clean it about a week and a half in. That's when we started getting those errors. So I want to deep clean it before we start so that we don't run into those errors. Have the replacement parts on hand. I do have them on hand right now. So if I don't need them between now and then, I'll still have them. There won't be anything wrong with them. And make sure I wash, iron, cut the fabric before February. Make sure I have all my bobbins already filled up before February. And sort the directional versus the non-directional before I start cutting. That's something else I'm thinking in the bin. So I really liked how I had some of them cut into just strips. And then I cut those into jar openers. So I'm thinking about putting like a piece of cardboard in there and having a separation. So like the bottom stack are the directionals and the top stack are the non-directionals. I think that'd be super helpful so that when I go to cut them for real into the shapes that I need, boom, they're already separated. The reason why I separate non-directional versus directional is when I put the tags in, I want to make sure that 1, all of the patterns that match have the tags in the same position, and 2, when I put my jar openers out on the table at a craft show, I want them all to be facing the exact same direction, and I want all the tags to be in the same position. So for the non-directionals, it doesn't really matter, but for the directional prints, it does matter. So it's just a little extra effort that I have to take when I'm making them to make sure that the tag is in the same spot. Anyways, that is all of the data that I have for you guys. If there's any piece of information that you're curious about, or something about my preparation process that you want to know, or another piece of analysis that you want to know, please let me know in the comment section down below. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a wonderful day.